Sankara was killed. And when you think Sankara was killed by his friend, that one was just the one who pulled the trigger. But there are brains behind that man who pulled the trigger, who, by the way, was a friend of Sankara. Burkina Faso would have been one of the most beautiful countries in Africa had Sankara lived long. The man who said to his people, here is the land, you must produce for the government and produce for yourself. Sankara who loved education. Sankara who gave our people health care. Sankara who knew that there will never be total liberation of people if women are not liberated themselves. Sankara who knew that a political activist must be equipped with theory of politics, because a soldier with a gun without political theory is a potential criminal. That's why political education is always important. Sankara who said, I'm not going to be part of borrowing money from IMF and the World Bank. So these leaders, I'm singling some of them out because I want to demonstrate to you that those who seeked good for us did not stay long.
These changes in Burkina, in Mali, in Guinea, there are those who are quick to condemn, including ECOWAS, which has now backtracked and has removed the sanctions that were imposed on Niger, Burkina, and Mali. And they said that this was a disruption of democratic regimes. What they did not realize is that the people in those countries were angry and annoyed at the leadership, which was exploitative, which was insensitive, and that therefore when these changes took place, they saw them as revolutions. And on the basis of the evidence that we now have, in the face of many difficulties, when you look at Burkina Faso, the government in Ouagadougou is making decisions that are people-centric. The administration in Guinea is making decisions that are people-centric. The government in Bamako, and I'll be in Bamako in the next 2 weeks, are making decisions that are people-centric. And that is what Africa is asking for, because many Africans have now come to recognize that these periodic 4-year SACO elections or 5-year SACO elections are rigged and manipulated, so that the populations have become helpless. And they now know, and you remember not so long ago when I was a student, there was a leader in Latin America called Anastasio Somoza. Mm-hmm. When he lost the election and his opponent told him, you've lost the elections, he said, yes, I've lost the elections, but I've won the count. Many African so-called leaders win the count rather than the elections. And if therefore we trust these imported and inherited so-called democracy, then the countries will not realize their potential. In a nutshell, I'm saying what we want to do is to encourage changes. The desired change should be changes that are participatory. But if there is a need for disruption for the purpose of restoring order, as we have seen in the Sahelian countries, so be it, because it is necessary, as we have seen with Burkina Faso, with Mali and Guinea, that sometimes you've got to take action that entail the cutting of the umbilical cord with the former enslaver, so that you are truly free. This is what Malcolm X used to say, distinction between the house Negro and the field Negro. And many African countries are now saying, we are tired of being house Negroes. We want to be field Negroes. So let us see how these revolutions take us and how far they will change the game. But remember that all human beings are liable to abuse power.
Yes.
So the people in those countries must be eternally vigilant, so that when the leaders are going off track and off rail, they are called to order. And we in the continent will be equally vigilant with them.
That's in the medium term. So the short term, it's collapse of the economy. And I'm saying so that our young brothers, Mali, Burkina Faso, Senegal, can prepare for themselves, because the white man never changes his ways. It's the same thing. What they did to us, they'll do to you. So be prepared to have your economies collapsed. Your only guarantee of success is food security. Go back to indigenous seeds. Go back to food security. Secure the food basket. When you take over those farms and etc., convert your military division into an agricultural field, into an agricultural department. Take those fields, convert your trucks of war into trucks of fertilizers and manure. Make sure that people are full. Because when people have eaten, they have better quality of politics. Because a hungry stomach does not know politics. You can be talking about ideologies, but if I'm hungry, the first thing is food. And therefore food, in many times, is used as a weapon of war. You can read that in the book, The Economic Hitman. You'll find you've got some interesting information in that. So in the medium term, you begin to see a recuperation. Those who are going to get involved in solving the problems of the short term, follow me carefully, when the banks collapse, which African will be able to pick up that and create? When insurance collapse, who will do that? When suppliers run out, which amongst the Africans will begin to? This is the call for diaspora. When you hear that your country is going through this, come on, stop what you're doing in your country, come back home and start investing into these businesses, so that come the medium term, the Africans are now able to run a parallel system to the colonial system. And in the long term, Africa will begin to see industrialization all in the hands of the Africans and look for relationships amongst themselves. So yes, it will cost them an arm and a leg. And when people are hungry and people have no medicines and etc., then propaganda comes in. You see these African leaders, they're failing to run their countries. They need help. We need humanitarian things. We need to send the United Nations with guns and weapons, and we go and rescue the people from their local person. The propaganda comes in now again, and the very same people, like the Israelites walking from Egypt, they'll start complaining again. Can we just go back? Like in South Africa, they're actually saying, no, let's go back. Let's go and find the white people back. Just come and give them this economy, let them run it, because you blacks are failing. And when people begin to have that deja vu of just having bread and butter, but not dignity, then colonization really worked. For it only did not colonize their minds, to colonize their stomach. That even with the promise of a land that they can own, they would rather have a white man walk with them to their own liberation. Assume its rightful place on the world political space will come with what I want to term political will to make that transformation. It comes at a cost. When you kick out America, you kick out Britain, you kick out France from your economy, the impact will be felt. I know that from Zimbabwe. The impact will be felt immediately in terms of the shrinkages in the banks, the collapse of the insurance companies, the collapse of the health system, the collapse of infrastructure development, the freezing in of loans and donations from foreign countries and foreign aid and etc., the restrictions and sanctions in terms of militarization, buying weapons and etc. I have first-hand experience as Zimbabwe for the past 20 years. We have been on sanctions from the West and its partners in Europe and etc. The readiness, therefore, you can never be ready as a mother, you can never be ready to deliver a child. You can never be ready. If you have been through the maternity ward, you may have a faint idea of what I'm talking about. When the day comes, and that fella must come, they will come when they must come, despite the pain that as a mother you have to go through to endure this. But the short term is painful, as these systems are closing in on you. But in the medium term, you begin to see a resurrection of new indigenous business people, like happened in Zimbabwe. Now they froze petrol, fuel, and what, and all this, and then local people started getting into that space. Now we have guru billionaires who are dealing in petrol, some are dealing in imports and exports and etc. A new breed of millionaires, much more than we produced during the times of beautiful independence.